I feel like we need some sort of like classy music playing when I start this thing. What's that song called? Like, and I could be like sipping a mug of something, probably whiskey, and I could turn and go, "Hello, welcome to the behind the scenes video for Tamer 6." Anywho, I've never done one of these before, and I'm talking to myself. So I don't know if I'll do this again or not, or I don't know. We'll see if you guys like it. By the time you guys watch this, hopefully you've read the ebook or listened to the audiobook. So it's 18 chapters. I mean, if you haven't read the book yet or listened to the book, then you probably don't want to watch this because it's going to have lots of spoilers. So you know, wait until you read it, and then listen. Anyways, yeah. So 18 chapters. I figure 5 minutes on each chapter. It's probably gonna be a little bit over an hour. Me talking to myself. I've got some got my notes here for everything. Is that backwards? Oh, that's cool. And I've got a Topo Chico, which is like from mineral water from Mexico that everyone drinks in Texas. I don't know. It's pretty tasty. And let's get started. Okay, so chapter 1, notes I have. Waking up with Leopa. She's one of my favorite characters. Just because like I like the, I always wrote her as like kind of what would happen. Her society is kind of like what would happen if the feminists like actually got their way and just exterminated all men, and then there's just women in a society for thousands of years. It's kind of my how I wrote her background of her species and stuff. I thought this was really interesting. Kind of like they're what's that one series where the women's all reproductive stuff is Margaret Atwood's series, Handmaid's Tale. Yeah, I mean just like that stuff, kind of the other way where it's men have just been exterminated and stuff. So but I think it's cool. Leopold like is into Victor and love with Victor. It's a man. She's kind of scared and hesitant with everything. So I think their sex scenes are really good. So I like writing that. I think with my sex scenes, I think I wrote really explicit ones in like Destroyer and Rock God, kind of my first favorite books. I wrote these really detailed, I think, awesome sex scenes, and then I kind of moved away from that for most of my books to kind of make them easier for more people to read. But I think the genre has now moved way more towards wanting those more detailed sex scenes. And I like writing them, so I'll write them more often. I think it's now at the point where people just, if they don't like them, they just skip through them. But if people do want detailed sex scenes, they don't get them, they get really, really mad. So I think it's probably safer now for authors to just write more detailed sex scenes than to not write them at all. Because I've seen plenty of readers just say, I won't read a book anymore if the sex scenes aren't detailed, where that didn't used to be the case a couple of years ago when I first started writing. A lot of people would say like, oh, there's detailed sex scenes in this book, I'm not going to read it anymore. So chapter 1 also has some fun conversation with Grumpy. They're kind of moving out of the salt camp cave area. And then like always have a cliffhanger with the Utah rapper ambush. Just kind of keep people going. I think I wrote this chapter. I got banned by Amazon. I started doing a couple Twitch feeds, and I wrote this whole chapter out on the Twitch feed. So that was kind of fun. I was like almost a year ago. So that was in chapter 1. We had a cliffhanger. So chapter 2, the fight scene was really complicated to write. I remember I did do it live on Twitch, and I had to like write, just because there's a lot of moving parts, I had to write out, I had to do a map, and write out like, I had to put like little indicators where each of the characters were and the raptors and stuff, and where the dinosaurs were. Normally I could write a fight scene pretty easily, but there was, I forget how many raptors there were, and plus Tom and Victor, Leopa, the Stegos, so there's a lot going on there, that I had to kind of account for in that. But yeah, it was fun to write. And so there's some of one of the Raptors got away, like the leader of the group. And Victor and him kind of shared a moment. What when is Victor going to train bigger carnivores? Like probably soon. Not with this book obviously held off on that. I think I want to have this obviously a very seemingly progressive type build with his ability, and Grumpy really kind of jumped out of that. You guys could kind of see why in this book, and next book kind of moves more obvious. Grumpy just likes Victor. They're just buds, right? So Victor is kind of able to tame him, but a lot of the other dinosaurs, he hasn't the ability yet. So, but before he does, if he gets a Utahraptor, he's gonna have to get the Deinonychus, whatever those the kind of the green feathered ones that were kind of Victor's first enemy. They were about the size of kind of bigger dogs. So he'll kind of tame those first, and then move on to Utahraptors, and then get into bigger carnivores. But this is a series that want to last 30, 40 books. So and I think I'm pretty good at writing kind of small progressions to the story, small upgrades for characters. I had one of my friends, Jason Cipriano, I know some of you guys read his books. And it's funny because we talk about the industry and stuff. And, he said, if I had, him and I talking about, he's like, if I had written Tamer, they would have, ended book one taming T-Rexes. And he said, and if Will Rand had written Tamer, they would have ended book one having tamed T-Rexes with like rocket launchers and lasers and stuff on it. That's just kind of the joke, is the kind of progression happens really fast. With most other authors, I kind of tend to slow the roll and make stories kind of stretch out longer, but slower kind of stuff, because I think it gives me more time to make more books in a series and kind of enjoy the story more and have the slow progression. I think the Cipriano stuff happened really fast. I think Iran's stuff is while good, it's he writes a book and most of the story happens in that one book and with a lot of progression. But I tend to slow the roll down a lot with those because it gives you a chance to develop the story more, and that's just my personal taste. So and in this chapter 2, so Leopold has a kind of a harem discussion with Victor. I just feel like that's with a lot of authors in the genre, they're it kind of doesn't. I think there is definitely a thing where powerful men have end up getting multiple women because they can protect them, and they want stronger babies and stuff. But definitely, I think there's also the relationship. Like a woman wants all the attention of a man, and if she has to share him with other women, I think that's there's going to be kind of feelings about that. So I think Leopold is like a conversation with Victor about being really excited about their love and being together and this new experience for her, but she's also a little dismayed that she has to share him with the other women who she still really likes and is enjoys, but just she wants all of his attention and time. So I think that's pretty kind of a organic way for a character to act. And then, of course, chapter 2 end with another cliffhanger. They see something burning. They're top of the hill. They see something burning the 2 valleys over where their camp is. So that's pretty scary because they've been gone for a couple days getting the malachite. So chapter 3 starts off with Victor sends Bruce up ahead to scout. Bruce is like one of my favorite newer dinosaur additions to the pack. Having eyes in the sky is really good. Bruce is like a lovable kind of soul guy. He's really nice. Also, of course, named after a Batman, Bruce Wayne. That's where I named Bruce for. So I think he's really cool. There's always the issue though they have is just communication. Of like, well, what do you see? Honk. Like honk, one honk if it's good, 2 honks if it's bad, and it's kind of that how they have to kind of determine that. So Bruce's response doesn't make Victor feel like that much better with the outcome. So it's really a stressful kind of journey home. Everyone's really tired. The Stegos have been carrying like so much malachite on them. but when they do get back, everything's okay. Well, not everything's okay. It's I think it's some funny Trell shenanigans. Because obviously it's apparent that they were smelting making the copper, and things got a little out of control. But she, was trying to pretend like it was all according to her plan and not to worry or anything. Trell's super fun to write. I remember, like, I think, this is kind of another way of how my books kind of develop, is that I think a lot of people read, first book of mine, and they might not necessarily like love the series because they're kind of getting used to the characters or the feel for them. But I do write my stuff, like I write stuff like episode, like I don't try to write a full story in a book. One, because I just think it's like, if a book's 80 to 100,000 words, I can't really get a complete kind of story out there from really good perspectives. So I just try to think of my stuff as like an episode or a season of a show. And I think a lot of times when people watch a TV show, the first episode, they don't like it. They can't get into the characters or whatnot. And definitely Trell, like a lot of people, the first book, they hated Trell. I think by the third book, she was, a lot of people's favorite. People still love Sheila a lot, but I think Trell is definitely the comedy of the group because of her opinions and haughtiness and all that stuff. So okay, so they kind of get into a discussion of they do a camp update. Like Sheila kind of talks through offense, defense. Troll talks about building. Galmai does food. Kaseri does like the creature comforts, jail management with Kuaru. We kind of like trying to integrate the two camps together. I think there's some really fun dialogue. There's a lot of different characters now in the tribe, so I kind of got to weigh everyone's personality and what everyone's saying and what they would say. And the cool thing now is I think I didn't really listen to the audiobooks that Luke Daniels did. I know I listened to a couple parts of them, and just whatever. I didn't really pay that much attention. I figured it was. I've never been super into audiobooks, and Luke just did a good job on them, so I listened to like a little bit here and there. But the ones that Chris and Jessica are doing the audiobooks, like Jessica just does such a great job with the different women's voices that now I'm like consciously like, how do I write it so there's way more women talking all the time, because I want to hear her do the accents and really bring out the personalities of the different women. Whereas before I wasn't necessarily like, I was thinking about doing that, but I wasn't necessarily like focusing on making sure that happened. And I think a lot of my earlier books, I think Trell would kind of monopolize the conversation. So definitely kind of making sure that doesn't happen with this. So they've kind of made bricks and tiles and shingles out of Adobe. They're starting to kind of think about knitting to the cloth. They do pour some of the copper. They forgot to smelt the copper, so that's good. And then they talk about kind of some of the issues they have with the fort. And like what their current fort, like the one in the Redwood Forest, because this is something I thought about actually since like I first wrote like book 1 and 2. It's a good location for defending against dinosaurs, but it's not very good dealing with other survivors because it just doesn't have a lot of logistical like superiority in terms of location and stuff like that. So I've always kind of kept that in the back of the mind when I was writing, that like they probably should find a new location or a better location somewhere, but it's hard because you kind of get entrenched in these kind of areas and stuff, and you start building stuff you don't really want to move. But it also feels a little bit like losing, like we built this fort for a long time, and now we got to leave. But I think like Victor's strategy is really good. If he doesn't know, he knows where the other group is, and he knows, or he thinks that they know where he is, and he thinks they can attack him anytime. So I feel like the best thing he could have done is just remove that advantage they have by leaving. And now that he does have so many more women in the tribe, and he has so many more dinosaurs, and they figured out like how to build stuff a lot quicker and how to build walls. It's not as big of a deal as it was in book 1 and book 2, building the walls and all that stuff. And it was just the two of them. And now they can kind of look at, and once they leave, then the other group doesn't know where they're at. That kind of removes that advantage. But Victor still knows where they're at, so I think it's a really good strategy for him to do. It also gets to allow me to, um, use everyone's tribe's kind of assets to redesign a new and better fort, using everyone's ability that'll hopefully be their permanent home. I kind of plan for books like one ahead of grand scheme of things of where the series is going to go and how things are going to happen. But hopefully this will be their new home. It's we're going to get there and talk about a little more, but like it's a great location. It's further away from the tribe that they think they're going to lose against. So okay, so then there's a cliffhanger with Hope's egg hatching. So then we move on to chapter 4. Hope's baby. We named Shirley Temple. Have a lot of pop culture themes with kind of the older stuff. So then that's kind of fun and stuff, and it's like the first kind of baby dinosaur they've had, so it's a really good experience. Sheila massage and sex scene. I know she's a fan favorite. I think she's like the most popular of the women. Maybe her and Charlotte neck and neck, but I think Sheila, everyone really likes Sheila. Yeah, so I think I didn't really write a descriptive sex scene with that. I just kind of did a fade to black, as I knew I was going to write a more descriptive one with Emerald later, and I already kind of had a little bit of descriptive one with Leopold. Try to do like 2 to 4 sex scenes a book. I know that if I and I was going to do the Kickstarter so that it was I would add a little bit more, if it hit over $50,000. And so I knew like, if I needed to, I can come back and kind of maybe write an extra 1,000 or 2 words there, if I needed to. But ended up when I finished the book, I added a couple other extra scenes and ended up being 105. And I think having two detailed sex scenes and then 1 faded black is fine for the book. I say like between 2 and 4 detailed sex scenes is normally what I try to do. So yes, that's there. So that was pretty. So that's chapter 4. There's more than that chapter, but it was a pretty shorter one. Chapter 5, he wakes up with both Galmine and Lipa snuggling with him, and he kind of thinks about having a 3 with them, and he gets a little bit horny. This is kind of a show of he's becoming more masculine and stronger and having more testosterone. I definitely think if there is a threesome in the future, it will be Galmine and Leopold, because Galmine is used to kind of bigger orgies with her people or sleeping with men and women, doesn't really bother her, and Leopold's used to having women as lovers, so there's that. I think I've kind of hinted a little bit in the books that Leopold has a little bit of a crush on Sheila too. I don't know if you guys have noticed that in the first couple books that she was in. She hasn't really done anything about that. But I think Leopold's definitely open to having other women as lovers. So if there is going to be a Galmine Leopold through with Victor, that'll probably happen soon. Some of it is like I kind of plan some things or don't plan some things, but sometimes organically things just happen. As I do the outline and I write the scene, it kind of, the way the dialogue might go is, okay, this makes sense with them to happen. So there's an upgrade. So Victor looks at his IQ, and his strength is 6 and stamina 5 and movement 4. His tame is still 4. So he is getting stronger. So they do some more morning planning, organization stuff about like what is everyone going to be doing when he's gone, how everything's going to handle about that. And this is kind of something I was thinking about. My background is business, and I've done a lot of project managing and sales, and a lot of authors have tried to write like survival type stories, books, and I think a lot of them just kind of fail because it does take a lot of organizational understanding of like what are the tasks that need to be done and who do you assign to those tasks and when do they get done and all that stuff like that. And it's what I kind of did for a living, for 12 years at my old company, and, along with some sales stuff that I did in sales training. But I'd take a sales business unit, from 0 sales reps and then grow it to my last project I did was at 600. And my old job would be kind of like, here's our contract from our client, build the sales team and the sales fulfillment and the order placement system, like build all these things from nothing, and make sure the programming is all done. So that's kind of all the things I did. So managing a virtual group of women and building Ford stuff is kind of really easy for me to do. But I've looked at a couple of other authors that have kind of done kind of more survival stories, and they really just can't handle the kind of organizational type stuff that I can keep track of in my books. So I know I've always been really worried. Like when I wrote Tamer, like, how long before someone rips me off? I think there's been a bunch of authors that have tried to do something similar, but it really just falls flat because, that's just not good. I think Eric Voll's Without Law series is really close. But I read through his books, and he rewrote his first book like 3 times. Because I'd read it and I'd give him a couple pointers here and there, and then read it again and give him a couple pointers. He'd rewrite the whole thing. So I mean that series I think is really close to getting kind of survival type stuff. But he still used me for help on it. Okay, so then they say goodbye to all the dinos. There's a bit of relationship building with Kuaru. She's going to be kind of the love interest in the next book, so he's kind of got to build that, and that should definitely happen, quicker because she's the leader of the other tribe they're trying to integrate with. So I think as soon as Victor and her are kind of like together, that'll kind of help everything. So chapter 6, we're traveling with Emerald now. I think Emerald's such a cool, fun character. You guys have finished the book by now, so you know how much fun she is. Every time I write, a book with that, trying to focus on that woman, I try to make it so that when you guys finish the book, you all think like, oh, she's my favorite one right now. Like, so every time you finish the book, like, oh, okay, she was the best. I really loved her. She's great. I try to do that with every single time. So I think it's cool with Emerald is that, Victor had this kind of like worry with her because she seems so predatory. But she also seemed really nice at the same time, and he's just trying to figure her out, and he couldn't really communicate with her. And then when he does figure it out with her, she's like a kind of, a little bit different. It's the same as she was how she was. He just didn't get it. So she is definitely like the war leader queen of, billions of people used to just destroying everything in her path. But she also loves Victor, so that's kind of a unique thing. But she's definitely going to be like a Conan type advisor to Victor, very similar to like the dragon type character in Star Justice, or even like Anika in Monster Empire, where encouraging the protagonist to just destroy everything in his path and conquer everything and take it all for himself, and just a really good right hand person that could do stuff. And the good thing about Emerald, she understands a lot of war strategy and stuff like that. So I definitely can see a lot of really fun dialogue with her where everyone's talking in the group and Emerald is just saying shit that's like completely like over the top, like like trying things, and no one else knows what she's saying, but Victor knows what she's saying, so he's like trying to like smooth it over with everyone. Where her answer is just we'll kill them, or take the women and breed with them and then they'll love you. So it's funny, she's gonna have like kind of like a disconnect with like, oh, obviously this is rape, but because it's you, it's not rape because you're like my mate and like you're gonna take over the world anyway, so like it's totally fine and justified, because she's definitely like not gonna care about that kind of stuff. So I have a little scene where she finds some flowers on the cliffside, and they I wanted to kind of use this. I kind of had the book planned out that they were going to encounter a really powerful tribe at the end of the last part of the book. They'd have to kind of overcome to move in the new territory. And the kind of this, it's so my editor is a huge Greek and Byzantine historian, and so he knows a lot of like classic warfare stuff and weapons, how they build weapons and build all the roads and stuff like that. So he's been really integral to me like writing these kind of books. because I was bounce ideas off of him and ask about stuff and but like you talked about Constantinople, like the city, and apparently the history of the city is it was built on this kind of peninsula, raised peninsula. And when they first kind of discovered the area, there was another tribe across the river by the ocean that had settled there, and it was obviously like the worst position to do. Like if you had this other area that was high on the cliffs, over the water, it could view everything, could control like the river upstream, or you had this other place that was like the worst spot. Why would you settle there? And I think I forget who it was. Maybe it was like Caesar or something. No, because like he's like these idiots. Why do they do that? And I was like, well, because they're dumb, right? Like just what they were just dumb. They didn't have the foresight that to do that. So I thought that would be kind of a throwback to that stuff. So yeah, the new location is definitely a Constantinople kind of feel to it, where it's this high city over there, and yeah. So we'll get more to that later on. Kind of get to the but they really need to clean out those guys. I knew they'd be really, really. I wanted to make them super challenging for Victor, so I want to kind of put the flowers in there, something he could use, and maybe he would use it, maybe he wouldn't. But I kind of planted them there to see. Eventually I would use them either this book or a book in the future. And a lot of times when I write a scene or I write a challenge, I don't quite know how he's going to solve it until I kind of get there. So I do like my outline or the brainstorming for stuff. Like I'll have these like 4 acts, and these like the 3 big things in each, 3 or 4 big things in each act. And I did have like, okay, there's a group of really mean, bad dudes that Victor has to defeat. And like, that was all I would write in my outline. And then I kind of got there and then started kind of developing their powers. But so chapter 6 ends with another cliffhanger. You guys may notice pretty much every single chapter I do ends with a cliffhanger. I want to write books where, I imagine you guys sitting in bed reading the book and you're like, one more chapter, then I'm going to go to bed because I got work tomorrow, and I want to do it. So you get to the end of that chapter, like, well, I can't stop now because there's a cliffhanger. So I got to read the next chapter. So that's kind of how I want you guys to feel with all of my books, so that you just don't stop reading. You just kind of sit down. You kind of devour it. Okay, so chapter 7. It's been a couple chapters since we had a fight scene. Last one was at chapter 2. I divide my books into 4 parts. I do 4 acts, and so I try to do some fight scene or tension scene every act, and then I try to have like a planning scene or relationship scene. Balance on those, but so like something around there. So definitely need a fight scene here. And the cool thing about writing Tamer is I can put fight scenes anywhere because there's always dinosaurs or other predators walking around or survivors. So I can really add a fight scene whenever. A series like Star Justice, I have to plan out the tension and the fight scenes like way more in advance because there can't be any sort of random encounters. And so that's definitely makes it a little bit more difficult to kind of develop the interesting story, because it's you can't always have like a random encounter or someone just attacking them, especially now in Star Justice that Adam's like got this huge empire and all these ships and all these warriors. Like, how is anyone going to get to him? So definitely it's become more challenging to write some fight scene or tension scene every 4 acts. So, but back to Tamer. I always try to keep the fights interesting. I want to try to make it challenging, everything. So I'll normally set up a terrain or something where I'm trying to be like a game master for a role playing game. So I'm like, well, here's the 4 opponents, here's the terrain, and then I'll kind of move on the other side of the table and be like, all right, if I was a player, how would I handle this challenge? What would I do? And that's something I kind of always did when I was playing. And I think I taught you guys a lot about like when I would GM all my role playing games with my friends when I was growing up. I'd started as a player. Most people do with GMs, and I found that I always ended up just like I was like smarter than the GM, but like I would always outthink the GM. So they would, here's the challenge here. And I'd be like, oh, I'm just going to do this. It's like way easier. And then I would solve the problem. The GM would be like, oh, like I worked so hard on this thing that you just like cleverly outthought around it. And, but then when I switched to being a GM, I would do these challenges, and I'd always felt like the players weren't quite getting the full effect of like what I wanted to do, like how I could, like I would say, okay, here's my challenge, and I think they could solve it these 4 different ways, and then they would flounder a little bit, trying to figure it out. So then, when a GM, I always have like some sort of NPC character in their party, just in case they couldn't figure out how to solve a challenge I gave them. I could kind of have the NPC give them hints, but so yeah, so the fight scene here, 4 Gigos. These are the first time they've kind of come into these dinosaurs. They're huge, they're aggressive, and it's a pretty open space. There's 4 of them, and there's only Tom and Grumpy and the Trudons and Bruce. So like, I just thinking like, okay, so I threw that out there, and I threw out 4, and I was kind of like, what am I? So then I went on the other side of the table, like, okay, if this other guy is the GM of the game, and he throws 4 Gigas at me, and this is what I have, how would I solve it? And I try to do that and not jump back to the other side of the table and then make the fight easier. I try to just be like, this is the challenge. How are you going to solve it as Victor? And then I kind of go and try to figure it out and solve it as Victor. And I'd say 99% of the times I'm able to figure out and do it. And I don't nerf or change the challenge at all. So with this, his whole strategy is, okay, I've got like a clump of trees and kind of use to guard my flank. Emerald gives the idea to use sand, which is good. So he kind of, basically like, how do you, crowd control, these other dinosaurs where I attack this one and stuff and move the position. So he has this is a much easier fight to track because there's only 4 opponents. There's less characters. So you had a lot of fun doing that one. So all right, so chapter, and then there's more sexual tension with Emerald. At the end of this, she's like covered in blood. So she goes and washes herself off in the stream, and she's just got like a killer body. And you definitely, we still don't know in this case if she's dangerous or not or into him. So there's some cool tension there. And it's funny, funny this. So you guys have read the book already, so this all these scenes. She keeps expecting Victor to just like fuck her. Like she's like, I just want you to fuck me, and you won't fuck me. You're trying to be too nice to me. So she starts to think like he's not into me. Yeah, we're kissing, we're cuddling, but like I just really want him to fuck me and inseminate me, and he won't. So I guess he doesn't like me then because he's inseminating all the other women in the camp. So she's like trying to give him as much clues as she can, but because she can't talk, it's it's kind of the issue they have. So they get some new dinosaurs to tame in chapter 8. I think packies are super fun, kind of a lot like horses. So this will be like a kind of a cool way for them to kind of get around really quickly. Until they kind of eventually get Utahraptors, which I'm planning eventually they're going to get Utahraptors, and those will kind of be the de facto horses because those are fast and can kill shit and attack it. So, but the packies are cool. They can move really quick. I always try to think, cultural stuff. So I thought Beavis and Butthead would be fun because you got a blonde one, and a black haired one, and they're kind of like knuckleheads, with like the bull heads and stuff, and they smack at each other. So that would be a good cultural reference to them. I had to check with my my IP attorney though, because I've been using Beavis and Butthead, and are they trademarked? Can I use them in the book and stuff? So I talked to my IP attorney, and it was totally fine because they are trademarked, but not in the manner that I'm using them. So and then another Tamer level up, so he's 5 now. So you guys know with 5 he got some new abilities, or a new ability to kind of be able to see and hear from his dinosaurs point of view, and so that kind of comes into play in this book a lot more as he starts to kind of figure out how to do that. But the IQ, doesn't tell him anything how to do it. He says, "Oh, you're level 5, great." So he's kind of figure out what to do. So then they get to the top of the mountain. They look down. We already know Dinosaur Land is huge, but it's just a long way off till the next, the end of the ocean. They do some more talk about the Overlord plans, what's going on. Emerald's, of course, happy that she's here because her own planet was eventually going to die. The language barrier between the stuff is he's trying to ask her questions, but he gets some hints about her homeworld. And he kind of learns how they fight with their light and stuff. Again, I was trying to think of how do I make aliens more alien. So they do have like medieval weapons and stuff, but they also fight with the light stuff. and then I ended this another cliffhanger where they're camping and someone attacks them. So yeah, I was thinking like, well, it's funny when I was going, back through my notes. I'm like, oh man, I did another fight, like did a fight in chapter 7, and now it's chapter 9. I did another fight scene, but something about chapter 8, I felt the pacing was really slow. It was still, I mean, it's a good chapter. I liked it, but I think I remember when I finished chapter 8, I was like, I really kind of feel like there needs to be a fight scene or something here that picks up the pace a little bit, because I think the last chapter was a little bit pace. And sometimes I just shoot stuff from the hip and stuff like that. So, but I also wanted to show, I wanted Victor to have a chance to show that, kind of start to learn that he could see through Bruce's eyes, which is going to make Bruce, really awesome addition to the team. He already is, but so I wanted to do that, and I also wanted to show Emerald doesn't really care that much about sacrificing her body. She could just, to whatever she needs to do to win, she'll do it. So the guy's got her, trapped with his claws in her throat, and she just throws herself on a claws because she's like, I don't. That'll buy Victor time to kill him, and the end justifies the means. So part of the cool thing with this series is every person I got to figure out their superpowers or kind of what they do, and how they can kind of their power level, because a lot of this stuff is kind of it's like the ability, but there's also like a power scape, a power thing to it that I think is a really interesting thing. I do like superhero stories a bunch, but there's always just kind of like a how do you balance everything and stuff. But I kind of don't need to worry about balancing stuff in Tamer, because it's not really a superhero supervillain story. It's just a sci-fi survival thing, and everyone happens to have abilities. But an example of that is like, okay, let's say someone can make things hot or cold. At like a base level, like that doesn't seem very powerful. Okay, you can make things hot or cold a few degrees or whatnot, but like take it to the extreme, and you have someone that can like instantly freeze something or instantly cause fire and heat something. And there's a character in My Hero Academia, like the redhead guy with the scar over his eyes, who's like super powerful because he can create fire and ice and a lot of it each time. So there's always like how what kind of power do they give them, and how powerful is it really? The kind of just things to think about. It's fun to do the physical descriptions. So with this guy, I was thinking like a bat mixed with a praying mantis. Sometimes I'll just take 2 animals or 3 animals, and then be like, how would I combine these animals together to kind of look like something completely alien to us that's humanoid. So and then Victor's getting a little bit, like he packs the guy as his body up a bunch. He's just kind of getting a little more aggressive. He's got more testosterone. He's getting more brutal. He's tired of his women getting attacked. I think we're going to see that transition through, the many books I planned for this series, where he just continues to get more and more Conan, like especially when he's, being encouraged by, women that like that kind of thing, like Emerald and stuff. I think that's a really cool progression for someone that started the book as like a dog catcher, I'd say a loser, but definitely down on his luck dog catcher, struggling to pay his bills, couldn't really talk to women, to becoming this Conan type dude who has hundreds of thousands of women that are his, and owns dinosaur land, and everyone fears his name and stuff. So I think that's eventually where the series is going. And then chapter 10, they have a kind of another travel chapter. I have a lot of fun kind of to pick out like different terrain and stuff, and where things are going to go, and how, like, what kind of trees and ferns and bushes and temperatures and stuff. So I always like to look for like balancing the tension and relaxation of the scenes through the book. So last scene we had that tension of the guy attacking them and Emerald killing herself. So this is a travel scene is going to be a little more relaxing, but then I add they're making their way down a hill, the switchbacks of the hills, and they hear some Carnos or some predator kind of screeching, and that kind of drives the tension up, and they're trying to adds a little ticking clock. They're trying to get down the switchbacks away from them, because they don't want to fight on the switchbacks because that's too tight. But it's funny too because I just think about like this world and all the danger in this world. And I'm like, man, I would not live like a day, it's amazing Victor's alive. He's just gotten really lucky, but I'm just, I mean, he's gotten lucky because I wrote that he got lucky, but, man, I mean, could you imagine like going to a dinosaur world and like pretty much everything is killing each other. And, there's even dinosaurs the size of dogs would rip you up, they'd be so aggressive. So I think that's a really freaking cool idea. They discover more malcolite on the cliff face. I want to make sure that each book has the opportunity for like technological progress. So they found some malachite northwest up on the coast of their, or maybe like straight more north of their old location. It was like 5 days from them. But I definitely wanted to be less of a big deal to get malachite for their new location. So this is, about a 3/4 of a day or half a day travel from where their new fort location is going to be, which is going to allow them to get malachite to make copper. And then there's I really love malachite. I think you guys saw I posted my Facebook group some cool I went to some rock shows and I bought a bunch of malachite. I just really love the green color. It's sparkly. It's really cool. And it can make copper. That's like, it's just awesome. It's just such a cool little rock. It's super funny how like we kind of figured out, the human race is like, I just threw this rock into this fire pit and added some charcoal, and all of a sudden they had little copper flecks, and that kind of created the Bronze Age. It's just really, really amazing how we stumbled upon that. And there's iron ore in the cave. They think it's iron ore. There's like there's giant bats in the cave. Like the cave is really super cool. I love caves. I think they're both beautiful and scary. So adding all this dangerous stuff to it is good. And then the giant centipede attacks, cliffhanger, of course. Every chapter I try to do a cliffhanger. It's funny because I actually wrote this. I found a bunch of centipedes at my house after I wrote this scene. Like I had one in the backyard, we had one in the front yard. I'd already written the centipede thing, and I just started all of a sudden finding centipedes. So I'm waiting to find dinosaurs now that I've been writing about dinosaurs for so long. But it's really interesting. Those, like, they're freaking scary, man. They're super aggressive. They could pretty much kill like almost everything their size. I think scorpions can probably take them on because scorpions can grab them and then sting them, but I don't know if those stinger can get through. I think there's like those YouTube channels where they have the insects fight each other, and I haven't seen a centipede fight anything yet, but I definitely remember seeing scorpions just pretty much plow through everything because they can grab shit and sting them, but that might not work with a centipede. But yeah, super scary, really strong, savage, like, and they've got little armored, plates and stuff on them. So Victor's able to get the centipede to pause with his commands. He's getting a lot stronger. So that kind of helped save his ass that time. So then there's after that scene, the kill, there's more traveling. Victor feels like he's starting to be watched. There's lots of threats in there. He sees this kind of new girl out of the corner of his eyes. BXC is her name. He kind of, she explains her name at the end of the book. But like, so she's watching them. And I was trying to think like what kind of person could survive on their own in Dinosaur Land without really needing a tribe. And I kind of came up with like someone that can run really fast, just escape everything. That would that would be someone that could probably keep surviving. And I started thinking more about that. So I think next chapter I talk about it a little some more. So I'll wait till I get there to kind of explain it more. So Emerald explains a little bit more about the enemy camp and what she saw, but she's using her trying to communicate with it, so it's difficult. So I think the note here, like, Emerald's the traitor. Well, I mean, it's so there. Even a lot of Facebook fan groups, my fans were, or you guys were saying like, "Oh, Emerald's the traitor. Obviously, she's a traitor because how else do they know Victor's name?" I always thought it was funny because I'm like, well, it's a world with people that have superpowers on it. Like, like there's a lot of different ways they could know. And there's also an IQ thing that kind of tells a bunch of information about the planet. Like, why would you just assume you know, a this woman would was the leader of the enemy camp. That just seemed like a really long stretch. Um, and I always kind of wonder, like, there seems like a lot of that, like, stuff, the feedback they get from readers, like, a lot of time people think Eve is like a traitor in Star Justice, like, oh, she's gonna betray Adam and this and that. I just always like want to be like, bros, like, what did a woman do to you that you think every woman is gonna betray you? Like, I don't like it's why would you think that? And these aren't the kind of books I write. I write books where I write books to make you feel good. I want you to have a good time and feel awesome. And having the beautiful woman that's your woman having sex with you betray you is not going to do that. So I don't write those kind of books. There are plenty of authors that do write those kind of books. If you like that sort of thing, you can read those guys. It's pretty much every other author out there writes shit that'll make you feel bad. So go ahead and read those guys. But I do not write those kind of books. I write books um, that make you feel good. And when you finish reading my book, I want you to be like, wow, I feel awesome. Michael Scott is great because I feel like a badass. That's what I want to write. So there'll definitely, you know, I may hint that there might be betrayals, but like even with this, like there was no real hinting that Emerald was going to betray him, and she had, she looked at him like predatorial, but like I think that kind of makes sense there. So I mean, like I kind of built that when I wrote about how she kind of seemed like she was predatory to him. But again, it's alien women, so there we go. And then Emerald kind of she actually has a really good idea for a G kind of Nomi bomb, where like Nomi can kind of prevent G's power from happening, so then G can kind of get somewhere and then like just burn people. So I think that's kind of cool. And so chapter 12 is more traveling. They made it to the beach, so they're kind of like as south as south much as they can go. There's an introduction to BXC. So BXC is obviously, I was thinking like, again, who can survive in Dinosaur Land with their abilities? Someone that can run really fast. Obviously, she's inspired by Chun-Li, so she's got the wide hips, the thick thighs, muscular thighs. I also wanted to make her seem a little bit more deer-like, so I had wide kind of big eyes. So one of the whole kind of deer feeling from her, where she's constantly thinking she's in danger, so she's just really paranoid and looking around, and can run really fast and talks really fast. So, yeah, and then the kind of the herbivore instinct she has, like she's scared of Emerald because Emerald is obviously like a empress ruler woman that is used to just laying waste everything in front of her. So it's funny that BXC doesn't trust Emerald. And we get the first glimpse into the skill set of the enemy tribe. She's scared. She doesn't think they should go, but Victor obviously needs to go past them to get to the area that he thinks he wants to build the new fort. So then he says, Bruce, go scout ahead. But Victor hasn't quite figured out how to like turn the eye thing on. At that point, still, it happened once, but he hasn't really focused on it. So he doesn't get to see that much. But he knows there's a way around on the north side. So they work their way on the north. So have to split up the group. This is another kind of I think fun moment. Is basically they're relying on Nicole and Grumpy to be like their main source of defense, the big dinosaurs. So they have to send them around on the south side of the beach and then move forward with just the Packies and the Trudons. The Trudons are really good at attacking like a man-sized opponent, because they can kind of sneak around and they can, all five of them can jump on a single person and just murder them. They're like little mini murder machines. But if a dinosaur attacks them, a big dinosaur, they can't really do anything. So they really need kind of like Nicole to tank, and get the attention of big dinosaurs, and then Grumpy to, kind of do the heavy damage, and the Trudons kind of distract them. So there's just different tools for the different kind of challenges that Victor is going to have. And the Trudons are definitely more of a tool to use against more of the humanoid type survivors that he finds on the planet. So the river in the chapter they kind of cross is kind of a nod to Ark survival. I mean, a lot of Tamer's a nod to Ark survival, but like there's these fun rivers in Ark where it's beautiful, wide river But it's so clear you could see all the way to the bottom. You see the big old like giant sharks swimming down there and shit and fishes and stuff, and you're like, oh my god, I don't really want to like swim across that or do anything with that because it's just gonna kill me, right? You could kind of, it's almost scarier to see everything in the river that's moving than to just have it be muddy and not see anything in it. So I thought that was kind of fun. So then they cross the river and they get to the kind of the peninsula sloping up area that's heavy jungle, um, that they're going to kind of end up making their future home. Um, so obviously there are tons of challenges with this new location though. You have to clear off all the thick jungle. It kind of slopes up, so it's not a flat area. The trees they can use to build stuff with, like the redwoods or the thicker trees. The hardwood versus softwood, that's the kind of different locations. You have to haul those over. Um, and so it's not. It's gonna be, there's gonna be some challenges building stuff, but again, it's kind of again, it's a throwback to Constantinople. Oh, okay. So I wrote down here the other city was called Sikael or Galata, across the Golden Horn River. I don't know if you guys want to pull up that up on Wikipedia or whatnot. You can look and see the actual layout of Constantinople versus Galata, and you see where the Golden Horn is. That's kind of what I was thinking about when I wrote this new territory, because you get the fresh water on one side, you're high up, you're by the water, so there's a lot of awesome strategic locations to the new area. This will explore the stone. I think I wrote here, I want to have a lot of a great location, but a lot of challenges around building there still. It's less dirt and more stone, so it's going to be harder for them to kind of put the trees in as the walls. Um, um, but they're going to have like more help from Kife there, so they can kind of work on that. But it's definitely going to be, there's clearings for dino ranching, and they can get, so there is going to be water with the river, but how do they get the water up the sides of the cliff to them? So I think Trail's going to have to design some sort of plumbing type thing. But in the meantime, they have Adela that can kind of lift the water up. So it's probably going to be their short-term solution next book, that they can kind of, or whatever, whenever they get there, that you can raise the water from the river and bring it up to them. And that's kind of the one of the things I struggle with writing these books is the cheats they have with the survivors. They aren't long-term solutions. Like, so they can kind of, so I think, so Victor needs to think like, I can't, yeah, Adela can like raise the water and bring it over to us, but like, that's not really what something happens to her, or what if she's not around? Like, he wants to design and build things that can work without anyone using their ability on them all the time. So that's something he's going to kind of, have to think about. So, and then, Victor's, obviously the men at the camp that they had to work around are a concern, because he doesn't want to leave them at his back and go, and he doesn't want to risk bringing the rest of the women through here and having to deal with them, which I think makes a lot of sense. You don't want to. He doesn't want to. He doesn't want to. He wants to at least learn more about them. But you definitely, like, Victor's the kind of guy, and this is mentioned a few times in the book, is like, if he can risk himself and do these things to protect the women, he's going to totally do that. So that's kind of like where he always thinks from. And then we got a kind of a front scene where Grumpy cock blocks Victor. They find a little spring, and Emerald and him are about to have sex, but then Grumpy gets in there. I thought that was kind of funny. I don't normally like to do things like that, because I think it would frustrate you guys. Like, no one likes to get cock blocked, but Grumpy is funny. I kind of get away with having to do stuff like that. So I think that was a fun scene. Chapter 13 is so the other Emerald has been watching the enemy tribe and learned some of their powers. So I do the same thing I think I talked about earlier with like my fight scenes. I'll just have the powers with the enemy tribe, and then I'll just think of a bunch and put them on there, and then I'll create this challenge, and then I'll go to the other side of the table and try to figure out how to solve them with the challenge, the cards I've kind of dealt myself. Um, and that just, I think that makes it a lot easier. I don't know how a lot of other authors work, but I think some authors are like, well, I need to have the solution in play before I start designing stuff. And I'm like, no, just like create the problem and then solve it, you know? And if you're really good at solving problems, it won't be an issue for you to solve problems. Because I think, definitely, you know, fun books have challenges that feel real and feel tough, and the protagonist should be able to solve it. Less fun books have like less fun challenges or less difficult seeming challenges. Uh, so so Victor makes the decision to take them out, or take out as many as he can, so that they don't have to worry about that coming back. And then Emerald comes up with a plan like, well, I'll just use the flowers and let them rape me, and they'll be distracting. You can just go and kill them. Victor doesn't want to do that because he's like, no, you're like, I don't want them to rape you. That's bullshit, even though it's his second body and stuff. So that is kind of what seals the deal. She realizes, though, he does want to have sex with me and inseminate me. So really, like, in book 2, when he first meets Emerald, or I think in the book 2, like book 3, when he first, like, he could have just taken Emerald, bent her over somewhere, and just had sex with her, and she probably would have, like, been like, oh, this is a strong man that, like, took me and inseminated me, so, like, cool, I'm his now, right? She probably would have been like that because she has, like, that's what she wanted the whole time. Now she's committed to him and the IQ. And they have a really good sex scene with both of them. And again, I don't know. I love writing Emerald being all like Conan, where she's just like, just destroy all of our opponents, crush them, have domain over everything, dominate the entire planet. I just think it's really freaking cool that she is like that, and it's going to be really cool that she can talk to just Victor, but no one else is going to get that she's saying that. So he's going to have these really fun comedic parts coming up where, like, she's like, everyone's kind of throwing their ideas out there, and she just like tells them to just murder everyone and take all their women. And like, he's going to have to, like, well, okay, she didn't really, like, he like kind of smooth that over when everyone else, what else she's doing. And that little cliffhanger with a new survivor arriving. And I did that because I wanted to again, it was a little cliffhanger, a little bit, a bit of action to kind of finish off that scene with. But my other thought was, okay, Victor's not going to attack until he learns more of their powers, and that could take a long time. And meanwhile, he's got a bit of a ticking clock with he's got to get back home and get the move on because he's worried about the other tribe attacking when he's not there. So he's got all these kind of pressure and stuff on him. And I was thinking of like, well, how do I kind of write this scene where he, I don't want to fast forward 3 days of him sitting on his stomach over the cliff watching these guys. That's kind of boring. So I had the survivor show up that kind of gives Victor a hint of like, oh, here's everyone's powers. And then he starts to understand the synergy between the guy that can freeze time and the guy that can use the nets, right? That's kind of the whole kind of initial setup for what Victor thinks is like kind of the power struggle in the tribe. So you get a really good understanding of like, I don't think we've actually had this really. I guess with Kuara's tribe, we kind of have a little bit of feel for how the tribes end developing, but this is a really good example of like a tribe that forms around the powers of the individuals and these men, and like how this guy came to rule and become powerful. This Atron guy, right? Because he's obviously most powerful, and he, was a certain way. So Victor's like, okay, he's trying to figure out like what everyone's powers are. Who do I? Obviously, he's like, I gotta kill this leader guy that freezes time, or this net guy. I think had Victor known how powerful Atron really was, he would have been like, well, fuck, I can't. I just need to kill Atron. The net guy doesn't matter. Almost none of these guys matter. Atron's the most powerful. I think obviously Victor gets there at the point, but he kind of gets there a roundabout way. So he starts to put together a plan with using the flowers and the dinos. And I was happy that like it worked out. I was able to kind of use the flowers because I didn't know if I'd be able to use them now, but kind of just the way it organically flowed together, I could use them. He bounced ideas of Emerald. And then they see Atron going to go to the bathroom, and they're like, oh, we got to move now. So he jumps on Bruce, gets Velma on his neck, and he jumps off the cliff. So the other cool use with Bruce is if they're in a high area, he can kind of glide down using Bruce, which makes that location even more badass for them because it's so much higher than the area around there. So, you think there's a future fort there, and they can kind of look through the whole area on the beach. And if there's something going on, that's a mile or two away, Victor can actually just kind of glide there on Bruce and get down on the ground, and then he can run. So that's going to be a really cool kind of perch for him to get around. So chapter 15, this is one of my favorite chapters in the book. Victor's all paratrooping into the enemy camp on Bruce's wings. He's like ninja killing everyone. He's got to be adapted. Like nothing. Like his plan is kind of good, but like all these things go wrong in it, where he's got to kind of adapt through the way. Like he kills who he thinks is Atron, but it's really like the Viking guy. And then like the wrong people show up, and he's got to kill them. And then like nothing goes according to. He has this really nice plan. It's good, but nothing goes according. He has to really adapt through it. You start to learn everyone's names. I think there's a really interesting like survivor bias that they have with a lot of these guys being in the camp because they haven't really had to struggle that much yet. So they kind of think that they're pretty awesome. I also think it's like so Atron is like totally like Trell. You guys can. I think I mentioned that in the book, but like he's just like, oh, well, I'm gonna come get saved. You don't have to worry about it. Just shut up and listen to me. I'm the best. Like it's very much like Trell, which I would assume someone, that had that level of power in their planet, world, solar system, whatever, would come up, would be like that. Would be like, no, it's they're people. My people are gonna come save me, right? Especially if he's like second or third or fourth generation, emperor ruler. So then I have a cliffhanger with this Atron guy. Like Victor kills the tentacle guy and the light orb guy, who are like some of the more useless people there. But then the leader shows up, and Victor's like, "Oh crap! Now I've basically killed 3 of these dudes. There's still 7 left. Now the leader knows we're here. Like, the frustration. And the leader's like really, really badass. Like the time stop power is incredible. It's obvious this guy is like, super, super out of Victor's league, and just really powerful. Victor's like, there's nothing Victor can do to stop this guy. So we see like the dynamic of the tribe, of them talking to each other. And Victor considers like, do I just leave without killing the time slot guy, the net guy? But he doesn't want to like come back because he doesn't, it's like, well, maybe I can come back and use Nomi to eliminate his powers, but there's just a lot of risk stuff. So he's going to try to like, kill as many as he can. So there's a scene where Atron actually almost outthinks Victor, where Atron crawls out the back of the hut and he goes to do a loop back around with the corpses. And Victor keeps thinking like, okay, well, I could just attack this guy. He's all alone. But then he's like, well, this just seems way too easy. This guy's coming out here alone. I'm not going to do it. He's a little nervous. And it ends up he was right to wait because Atron has the time slot globe around him. So Victor kind of was like just barely scraped by with that. Which is a little bit of a meta game here with the time bubble and stuff. And we start to learn Atron's like actually pretty freaking smart because he kind of did that. So I always like, and this is something we're going to see like as, the series progresses, like the bad guys are more powerful, more clever. They've kind of grouped together and they got their following and stuff. So there's definitely going to be like, more of a challenge there. So it's just like danger all around in Dinosaur Land. There's like freaking dinosaurs and there's more dinosaurs and there's like other survivors that are badass and there's other survivors that are badass and organized, each other and stuff. And, so it's, there's always like there's always gonna be someone somewhere out there that's bigger and stronger and tougher than Victor. So he's going to have to kind of like outthink them and use the team. So and he's got to worry about like, okay, how do I? So the time slot guy goes to bed. Atron goes to bed. So he's like, okay, I've got the rest of the crew here, these 6 guys. But how do I really get Bruce to drop the flowers down there without risking Bruce's life? Because Victor plays really defensively, or tries to, with the dinosaurs. And I always think of like any real time strategy game I played, especially the squad based ones like Dawn of War 2, which is probably my favorite little real time strategy game. Where you squad based, right? Where you want to make sure you protect all of your units that you've got as you move forward. So you very carefully kind of plan things out. So I thought it was funny too, because so I had this scene, like, how do I solve this problem? I was actually I normally don't get writer's block, but like I got stuck here. So I went for a walk and I actually called my editor and I was like, okay, here's the situation. And he was a couple chapters behind me, because I normally just give him like, okay, I'm done with like 3 or 4. I write everything in parts. So I think I told you guys. So this book was 4 parts. So he'd only finished part 3 and I was part 4 at this point. So I had to call him up and be like, okay, so this is where I'm at with the story, and this is everyone's powers, and they're there, and I'm trying to do this, and I'm just talking through it. And as I talked through it with him, I'm like, oh, I got the answer. I'm just gonna do it this way. And he's like, oh, okay, glad I could help, like, but because I ended up not needing, but when I came to the solution, I bounced off, and he's like, oh yeah, that's totally like a great idea. What you should do. So, because really what it came out to is like, it doesn't really matter if Atron wakes up if everyone else in the team, his party, is dead, right? It's not that, or so Victor thinks. It's not that big of a deal. Now, what happens is Victor learns, holy crap, I killed this guy's team, but he's still freaking crazy powerful, because he can still have the globe of time stop around himself, and he can still send it out, but at least his whole team's dead, and now he's like, oh, I'm just going to leave and figure it out. So, so BXC shows up. I think it was a really fun scene there. So he kills the tribe, right? He gets rid of everyone except for Atron, who's still back at the camp. And Victor's like, all right, well, this guy's here. Like, we know he's here. We're going to go get Nomi and we'll come back. But there's also some challenges around that, because he's worried, like, what if this guy's gone? What if, like, I don't want this guy out there. He's so powerful. He could time stop all of us. Like, he doesn't like leaving him behind, but he can't beat him. Like, he just cannot beat Atron. There's no way that Victor's power can trump this guy. He just can't. So then BXC shows up to compliment Victor that is on his victory, and there's a fun Emerald like commentary, which is how our character's kind of going to be for the rest of the books. As she says this like outrageously Conan stuff that only Victor can hear, and he has to kind of keep his straight face while she's saying like, "Oh, I'll hold her down, and you can just rape her, and then she'll love you afterwards." And he's got to be like, no, we're not. And then BXC kind of like, what she's saying something about me, and he's like, it's okay, she's fine. So chapter 17, it opens. It did a bit of an Inception opening, and I say Inception like the movie Inception, where it's like it opens in this thing, and I kind of have to unpack the thing inside the thing, the time scales, because it opens up with him waking up because BXC's yelling at him, and I kind of have to just back up then and explain where he is and how he got there. I really, really hate doing that. I like writing all my stories very linearly, where like A happens and then B happens and then C happens and then D happens. But in this case, like C happens, and then I have to explain to you what A and B were in that. I don't like doing that, but I think for this scene it kind of works because he was just so tired and he got back and like all that stuff. And I didn't want to like actually write out in order, because I felt like they only really needed like a couple sentences or two of like exactly what happened on their trip back, because you guys have already experienced them traveling there on the dinosaurs through that area. You've already experienced a really fun fight scene, and now it's just the escape back. So I didn't want to write out a couple paragraphs of them, traveling and stuff and happening and going to sleep. I thought it would just be better if they just opened up with him waking up and stuff. So BXC's warning him that Atron is following. He's right behind him. Victor like didn't expect this. He didn't expect the guy to follow them, and they figured out he's following the dinosaur tracks. He realizes that we can control the dinosaurs, and this guy just can move. He could just keep going and going and going. He's like a freaking Terminator. So they got to leave and go. And there's some cool, I think, like relationship building stuff with Grumpy, because Grumpy this whole time he's like grumpy. He doesn't want to be here, but like we kind of learned that like Grumpy loves Victor, and like Grumpy doesn't think he's fast enough to keep up with them. So Grumpy's like, I'll just stay back and try to stop this guy or kill him, to give you guys some more time. And Victor's like, no, you're not going to do that and stuff. They get a little argument stuff, but that's cool. So I totally like that part with Grumpy. I think Grumpy is like the fan favorite. Everyone loves him, and I love him too. He's cool. Okay, so and then like you can use Bruce now to scout in the air, so we can see exactly how far behind he is. So then Victor kind of gets the idea, like, okay, well this could actually solve our problems, because I'm worried about leaving this Atron guy out here in the wilderness because he might ambush us. But if we can get him to follow us back to the camp where Nomi is, then she could, stop him from using his power, and then I can kill him, right? So Victor's like, this is actually a really this. Initially, it looks like it's bad. This guy's chasing us and following us, but like Victor kind of quickly figures out, oh no, this was actually really, really good. And I love writing stuff like that where it seems like it's a really awful thing that's happened, but then the protagonist flips around and figures out how to use that as something great. So that was I think a really cool thing for there. So then Emerald actually, now they talk and they're traveling. Emerald could tell him a lot more about this distant enemy camp that has the 80 something people in it. She doesn't know much, but she gave what information she has. And I know like a lot of people were like, well, they want this enemy camp to be the enemy, but like it's gonna happen, but it's gonna be like, this it's another really big enemy. And there's no way Victor's team can beat them at their current power level. They just can't. So like it doesn't make sense for me to just have any sort of conflict with them. I think Victor's strategy of going to a new location, buying himself some more time, getting more powerful, I think that's definitely a good call because there's no way he could be the tribe out there, especially if they know where he's at, right? So, and he doesn't know what kind of powers they have, right? So chapter 18 is the last chapter. It's the fun homecoming. Everyone's there, but they have to deal with Atron. I tried to give everyone a chance to talk, but Victor was like, we got it. This guy's coming. He's right behind us. We got to take care of him. So then we've got Atron says his IQ gave him Victor's name. So now we know the IQ can get that stuff. So there's like a little more upgrade stuff that Victor can get with that. And then Nomi uses her power, which is like really freaking cool looking. I would imagine something from American McGee's Alice 2, like the Madness Returns or whatever. If you guys ever played that game, it's really cool. You play as like Alice Little in this game. It's really dark and creepy, and it's one of my favorite video games. But whenever Alice uses her power, like the screen turns dark and black, and like she looks all horrified and stuff. But it obviously didn't have the blood and stuff in Nomi, but definitely, your power is called Eclipse, so like everything gets eclipsed, and it's like darkness, and everything's like twisted around like an infrared photo. If you ever looked at like what an infrared film photo looks like, they're really cool looking. They're all black and whites and grays and just like pop. So that happens. Then Victor kills the dude, and it's end of the book, awesome. And then Trill gets like a last zinger at the end, asking if Emerald's pregnant with Victor's baby because she's got a kind of it doesn't say she has a one-track mind at this point, but she kind of does. She's not in this book a lot, because it just she's in and out. So like that's a main of her priority is like I want to get pregnant. So she's definitely like concerned with that. So she does have kind of a one-track mind, but like there wasn't a lot of building in this book, and that's where her other aspect comes in. So because I had a few proofers like, oh, Trill cares about having a baby. Like, well, yeah, she does want to have babies with Victor, and she wants this experiment to work. But like, there wasn't a lot of building in this book, so that's where the stuff that she shines. So, of course, out there. So cool. All right, so that was the book. Waited a year to get it. Sorry about that. Oh boy, fun with Amazon. But I hope you guys enjoyed this little movie. I don't know if I will do them for the next books or not. So let me know. Let me know if you guys like this and you want to see them for each book. This did take me a little bit of work to do. I guess we're like in an hour and 13 minutes now. So I don't know if I'll do them for new Kickstarters and stuff, but if you guys like them enough and you thought it was a good value to you to do them, I'll keep doing them. But like, let me know in either the Facebook group or you can send me an email or whatnot. So cool. All right. Thank you so much for waiting this year, and I hope you guys love the book. I think this is my favorite Tamer I've written so far, and looking forward to doing the next Space Tent. Okay, guys. Bye.